Just a few weeks ago, David Copperfield announced his final show, closing the curtain on his iconic career as a resident magician at the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas. He's wrapping up a career that has lasted more than 25 years. So in this video, in honor to his legacy and career, and from my perspective as an experienced magician, I'm listing for you what I think are his top greatest illusions. And even though you're a big fan of David or a magician, I'm sure there's some of them that you didn't know about. So if it sounds good to you, sit down, relax, and let's get into it. So at position number 10, we have the Dancing Cane Act. This one is, from my point of view, one of the simplest but yet most beautiful magic effects you can watch from David. It's just a cane levitating around him and literally dancing with him in a very smooth, elegant way, super counterintuitive ways that it's hard to imagine how or what is the method behind it. And the first time I saw it, for me, it felt super magical and I got super excited about it and I really enjoy watching it. And the transitions from side to side are super beautiful, that if you also add the expertise of David on this, it makes it a beautiful introductory effect that I think he's using it, because after you can see the end, it's just starting transitioning to another one. So for all these elements and more, I think this effect is worth being listed here. So at the position number 9, we have the ballroom floating mirror ball. What attracted me the most about this act is this particular David style of introducing magic effects and linking different ones in these kind of casual situations. In this case, being in a ballroom with people dancing and going from effect 1 to effect 2 and somehow linking them together and making kind of a story, which is something that as a magician I value a lot, to put a premise that will link every trick and have like a historical line or storytelling. And here, what's make it beautiful is not only the method itself, because as you can see, floating ball illusion is very convincing, not only because of what you could see real life, but also on the transitions going from side to side of the ring, convincing you that there's nothing attached to it, and also then transitioning to this zombie ball kind of phase, that it's also a classic concept in magic, and then the disappearance at the end, it's completely fooling. I don't know how it's done. So that's the beauty of David's magic, that sometimes it requires such a level of customization that his team of engineers, they have to come up with new methods that nobody knows about, and that's what I appreciate, because it makes me feel like a spectator again. So the position number 8, we have the Cocoon Act, which magically speaking is what it's known as metamorphosis, but here is getting a bit farther from the classic premise. And the classic premise is, in a difference with what we see on David's, is that everything happens in a box. The assistant gets inside the box, maybe with handcuffs or somehow immobilized, and then the magician gets up top of the box and just by passing the curtain transforms into the assistant, and then the magician appears inside the box with probably the handcuffs or inside the back if they put it back. Sometimes it's with the back, sometimes don't. What we can see in David's version is that he's adding an extra factor, which is this distance that he creates by placing himself in this levitating base. We pass from what it feels a metamorphosis, like the person becoming or transforming into the other one, to a more teleportation. And I think from my point of view, this adds value and creates this extra magical feeling we can get from seeing somebody teleporting like that. And the execution of it is, from my point of view, one of the fastest and smoothest ever registered, and that's why I think it's worth adding it to this list. At the position number 7, we have the Dancing Ties Act, which I know for some of you will be a bit strange to add this act in this list, but I have to say I have an emotional attachment to this effect, because I discovered this act when I was barely starting into magic, and all elements together, plus the way the routine is performed with the iconic song and so on, it just made me fall in love instantly. I can understand, because now as an experienced magician, I can tell from the introduction of the elements in this very interesting, funny dynamic with a spectator that is borrowing the tie by, doing all that, then starting the animation in this increscendo way, starting more from simple moves, then getting to more complex one, where then the tie is singing with what seems to be the mouth, like if it will be a snake. It's just beautiful. And the song also, it's what makes it super iconic. And then, all the convincers with the swinging ring and then drinking the milk, and this final punch on the end with all those ties singing together in chorus is what makes it, from my point of view, a masterpiece that I think is being underrated. And to make honor to it, that's why I put it on this list and at the position number 7. So in the sixth position, we have the laser illusion act, which is basically a reinvention of the classic premise, cutting a person in half, which by the way is a very old premise. Here I had a dilemma because David already has another version that is closer to the classic concept of cutting a person in half, and there he's playing with this kind of escapism act with time travel that it's beautiful to watch. But because I had these two, I was not sure which one to put in this list. And I decided to finally choose the laser one because it's adding a whole new dimension to the effect. Because normally the classic premise is presented with a person being attached to a table or to a box, and we can only see, you know, the legs moving or the arms moving, which is a bit limited from my point of view sometimes. And I think people nowadays, they saw so many other illusions that are only moving the legs, even though they could be very convincing. I think adding this kind of extra dimension of you having the freedom to move around, and not only that, but also showing your body parts detached from the legs, it's what it's really making it a whole new thing. It's getting closer to what people would see if you can magically cut a person in half. So that's the reason why I ended up choosing the laser one, but I invite you to watch both because each one has its unique touch and visual aspect that makes it worth watching. So the fifth position, we have the Walking Through the Wall of China act, which is probably one of his most iconic and popular acts. And what you may not know is that this effect is based on the original one created by Harry Houdini, which was basically a wall penetration act. But the key difference here is that while Harry Houdini needed to be concealed physically, meaning that you could not see him going through, or at least not have any visual reference that he was going through, here David adds these silhouette shadows that create this very convincing illusion that he's going through the walls. So because of his new approach and the addition of those convincers plus the iconic location in which he's performing this act is what I think makes this illusion so popular and memorable. And I have to admit, guys, that I was not feeling very sure about placing this act at the fifth position, but in the end what made me decide to place it there was my personal taste. So let me know in the comments what you think about it. Do you agree with me, or do you think this act should be placed or deserves to be in a higher position? So getting closer to the top three, we have at the fourth position what I think could be called the sensual vanish. You will see that this, with the music and the way the assistants move and the way they interact with David, I think could be easily called something like that. So besides that, what makes this act worth being in this position from my point of view is first the way that the assistants are vanishing. The way they disappear is one of the smoothest vanishes I have ever seen. I think this is getting as close as possible to what we ideally think a magic vanish would look like. The vanish is not the only thing, because the killer part of this act is the way that those assistants are reappearing just after they vanished. As you can see, the way they reappear is extremely magical because it starts getting with this white cloth and start to create the shape of them, like if there will be the spirit of the assistants just right under that platform. So he starts to somehow draw their silhouettes with a blanket. The assistants are there, which from my point of view is one of the cleanest ways to make somebody not only disappear, but teleport and reappear on that platform. And it feels extremely magical to me. When I saw it, I was like, okay, I cannot imagine how it's possibly done. And I still have no idea. Of course, the vanishing part, maybe yes, but the reappearing part is so captivating and visual that I don't even want to know how it's done. I hope so far you're enjoying this top 10. Before we get into revealing the top 3, I would like to invite you to take a moment to like this video. This will help me a ton and will allow me to create and do better content for you. And of course, leave in the comments if you agree with the list I already made, if there are effects that you think I missed, or how would you rearrange this top 10 if you would have the chance. I would really like to see your comments and see your opinions about it. And if you like this type of content, consider subscribing, as I'll be uploading many other videos that will be related to learning magic and performing that I'm sure you'll be interested in. And now, with that being said, let's move on to the top 3. And finally, getting into the top 3, we have at the third position, the Vanishing of the Statue of Liberty act, which, what can I say about it? I think it's probably the most iconic and popular illusion from David Copperfield. I have to say that the reason why I decided to put it on the top 3 is because the mind-blowing concept itself. The idea of making something that big that heavy disappear is something that requires such an out-of-the-box way of thinking that just thinking about it makes me like get frozen blocked, because it's hard to imagine a way to realistically create the illusion that something that big and that heavy disappears in front of people. Because as we can see there, the way it's filmed, it's legit. You can see that the people is there. It's probably people who is not stooges. They are there seeing the same thing we see on camera. And the whole concept itself, the aura of the effect, plus you know, the methodology used, which I don't know, but I could maybe have an idea, but I have nothing confirmed. I think all of this combined together creates such an amazing piece of magic that things deserves to be on the third position. And at the second position, we have the flying act. And here, I'm not afraid to say that this is probably one of the most aesthetic and magical acts ever performed in history. Starting first with the music is brilliant. It's a type of music that it fits so perfect to the routine, and when you hear it just without watching, you kind of get goosebumps, because it's so inspiring and nice that it fits perfectly there. When you put it with the effect, it's just, it was meant to be that song. And then moving on with the whole effect itself, magically speaking, the way he adds the convincers to make you see that there's no methodology behind it and that he's really levitating is set in such a way that it's brilliant. And what creates the most value in this effect is the images he creates along the routine. From him starting the levitation from the ground, then transitioning from side to side, or for example walking with the assistant inside the box, or what I think was the killer is the levitating with a spectator in his hands, plus finishing the act going with a falcon on his arm. I think all those images create such a beautiful visual piece of magic that I think this was probably one of the most aesthetic and magical acts ever performed. And here I was not sure if I wanted to put it first, but we'll see now that probably the first one has a good reason to be there, but I was really thinking on if to put it first or second. But in the end, I decided second, even though from my point of view, it definitely deserves to be the first. So finally, in the first position, we have what I personally think is the greatest illusion of David Copperfield's career, and this is the portal. This is probably one of the most ambitious acts ever performed in a theater, not only because of the concept itself, like a person or like two people teleporting from stage to a completely different location, 1,000 kilometers away, but also all the convincers he's adding throughout the routine and the way they vanish. I can tell you from a magician that all those convincers, like the picture they do, the signature on the arm, that he's getting with him to then be revealed in Hawaii, supposedly, those are unique and there's no replicas or some video editing, and especially at that time, video editing or the technology for achieving such a thing was not there. So I can tell you those are the same elements there, and this is what makes it so convincing actually. But besides that, my favorite part so far is the way they vanish. I cannot imagine a possible way to, in such a thin platform with two adults above the audience, disappear in such a smooth and fast way without leaving any trace. I don't have any ideas on how this is possible. But here we have to point out that if we want to find a realistic method, we should not pre-assume many of the things that everybody who is watching stuff of specials will be pre-assuming. Even though removing most of the elements there that could maybe lead me to get closer to what the method is, it is so well executed, it is so fast and so smooth that I could not imagine a realistic way to make that or to replicate it. And that's one of the reasons why this act is so magical to me, not only by the concept, but all the things and elements that are coordinated in such a beautiful way to make this story work. And plus also in the end, having this iconic reappearance of David with the sun from Hawaii, if I'm not mistaken, is making it so epic and so memorable. And I think because of that, this illusion deserves to be in the first place and be what I personally think is the greatest illusion that David Copperfield has ever performed. So that was the top 10. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. And if so, please don't forget to give me a like. This will help me a lot. And as I said before, I invite you to put in the comments if you agree with the list, how would you arrange the effects that I already listed, and if there's some of them that you would consider to include them also or remove them from the list, because this is all about taste, is all about your criteria, and I would really like to see what you think about it. And before we finish, if you're liking this type of content, consider subscribing, as I'll be uploading many other videos that will go from tutorials to magic reviews to debates or top 10s that I'm sure you'll be interested in. And now, if you want to keep enjoying this content with me, I'm letting you hear these super cool videos that I'm sure you will enjoy. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and I hope to see you in the next one.